Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Law Sessions. My name is Samuel Senyonjo, and I'm going to be taking you through what we call consideration. Consideration, we are still doing the law of contract. Yeah, as we said yesterday, that law of contract is very essential in the day-to-day running of our life. So it is very important that we deep digger. For those who are going to offer law course, I'm going to be taking you through the whole law of contract, and your questions are welcome actually. So I'm going to be doing the law of contract. Thanks for those who are around with me this morning. Atavara, thank you that you're around this morning. So I'm going to be doing the law of contract, and today I'm doing what we call consideration. Even if you are not a lawyer, even if you did any course, you just need to know about what is the law, because every day, every other time, we are being governed and ruled by the law. So today I'm going to discuss consideration. So we saw in the first lecture about contract that in every contract, consideration must be present. What is consideration? These are the questions I'm going to answer today. What is consideration? Number 2, how do we measure consideration? Number 3, when is it sufficient? When is consideration sufficient? And number 4, I'm going to talk about the types of consideration. And then number 6, I'm going to do some of the rules for consideration. I'll give the summary and then we shall call it a day. Now, to begin with, what is consideration? Yes, last time I talked about the Contracts Act. We have a very wonderful law, and that is the law of contract. It is kind of exhaustive, and it has definitions. It has many things therein. So I'm going to be answering, what is consideration? Well, to put it this way, consideration, to put it in a lay language, consideration is what you give me for my promise, or what I give you for your promise. Like, for example, you did a certain work, then I pay you. What I pay you in law, we call it consideration. I'm going to read the definition as provided for in the Contracts Act. I'm sure you have your PDF, the soft copy. Consideration in the Contracts Act, it is provided for in section 2 of the Contracts Act, and it reads, consideration means a right, interest, profit, or benefit accruing to one party or forbearance, detriment, loss, or responsibility given, suffered, or undertaken by the other party. So, on the other party, loss. On my side, I'm going to benefit. So, consideration, you're going to give me some money. That means you're going to suffer loss, and then I'm going to benefit. That is what we call consideration. Like, I've always given social examples. Dowry. The dowry we give to the side of the lady. The dowry I give, or the bride price. Some of them call it bride price, but I'll choose to call it dowry. That dowry, the gifts, the token of appreciation I give to the parents of the lady, it is called a consideration. So that is what I'm going to talk about today. The consideration is the detriment suffered by by one party, and then the gain to the other party. Yes, as I introduced you to what we call cases. So case law has defined what we call consideration. It has tried to define what we call consideration. Yes, what is consideration? Consideration, according to case law, you are going to write the case of Chuli versus Misa. It is 1875 case. Chuli, the spelling is C-U-R-R-I-E versus Misa, M-I-S-A. It is 1875 case. The wise judge in that case held that consideration means a variable consideration in the sense of the law may consist either in some right, interest, profit, benefit accruing to one party, or some forbearance, detriment, loss, responsibility given, suffered, or undertaken by the other party. So you're going to work for me. I'm going to give you money. So I've suffered loss. I've suffered some loss. I've suffered some loss. You've gained. You've worked for me. Then I've given you 100,000. So that means I've suffered a certain loss. You've gained. So that is what we call consideration. It is what we're going to do today. So I'm going to be answering questions. So question number 1, what is consideration? The same is answered. That is something I suffer, you gain. That is what we call consideration. Thank you very much, Atta. So another question, how do we measure consideration? How do we measure consideration? How do you measure it? Is it measured in terms of what? Money? Goods? Services? How do you measure consideration? So consideration is measured, basically, the first principle is that consideration is measured by the parties in the contract. That is number 1. If you are a party in a certain contract, you and me are going to sit down and we measure the consideration. So number 1, parties in the contract are going to measure the point number 1. How do we measure consideration? That is the next question I'm answering. And then number 2, in monetary value. So anything to amount to consideration, it must be of monetary value. At least some monetary value must be attached to it. So if it cannot be measured in monetary value, then it may not amount to consideration. And that was the case in Chapo and Company versus Nestor and Company. So Chapo is CHAPELL, put and Company. Some persons who are calling on this point, please help us. We are recording. Now, it is NESTLE and Company. So in that case, they were saying that something has to be of monetary value. That is another point. Those are 2 points. How do we measure consideration? 1, it is measured by the parties to the contract. Number 2, it has to be measured in monetary terms. And point number 3, there must be economical value attached to it. There must be economical value attached to it. And that is the case that is the same case of Chapo. So in that case of Chapo, they were saying that anything that can be having that economic value in it can amount to consideration. So we measure consideration through monetary value. That is number 1. Number 2, economic value. And number 3, as we said, the parties to the contract may choose what consideration. Like if I'm selling a car, we may sit on a round table and we discuss the value, the consideration that I'm going to give you 100,000 shillings, or I'm going to give you 1 M. So that is the consideration. So if the parties agree on any consideration, then the courts of law will not interfere. So how do we measure it? And number 4, the 4th point is forbearance. Forbearance is like patience, can amount to consideration. Let me give a simple example. If you are supposed to deliver something, say tomorrow, and you do not deliver the same tomorrow, then I be patient for a certain period of time. My patience can amount to consideration. You were supposed to deliver certain commodities, but you did not deliver. So, if I forbear you, if I be patient to you, my patience can amount to consideration. So it is a consideration. The law takes it as a consideration, and that was the case in the case of Bank versus Broom. Bank as in bank, B-A-N-K, versus Broom as in B-R-O-O versus, M. That is, the case is 1864. Patience, we shall look at it even in the rules governing consideration. So forbearance can be, consideration can be measured in terms of forbearance or patience. I've been patient to you. You are supposed to deliver. You've breached the contract. You've not delivered in a certain period of time. Then I've been patient to you. So we can measure the same in terms of that. And note this, gratuity does not amount to consideration. So any gratuity, whether in terms of a promise, cannot amount to consideration. If I promise to do something and you don't give me consideration, then that one cannot be enforced under the law. That is what we call gratuity, or something done for free service. If it is a free service, if it is a gratuity, then it cannot amount to what we call consideration. So consideration, there must be some monetary value attached to it. So if you choose to do for me something freely, then you cannot enforce it. If you choose to do something freely, I repeat, you cannot enforce it in courts of law. Gratuitous acts cannot amount to consideration. Wow, they are disturbing me. I know the network is kind of poor. So, how do we measure consideration? Consideration is measured in those four. The law have developed four: forbearance, economic value, money, and then the parties to the contract. We sit, we choose the consideration we want. Now, another thing I'm supposed to discuss: when is it sufficient? When is consideration sufficient? When is it sufficient? What is sufficient? Like, you are selling me something, but what is sufficient? We can go to courts of law. How much should I pay? What are the rules pertaining? How much should I pay? What is sufficient? The general rule is that it need not be adequate, but it needs to be sufficient. So, in order for courts of law to consider that there is consideration, that consideration need not be adequate in the eyes of court. No, but it just needs to be sufficient. I have two cases to that effect. I have the case of Haig versus Brooks. Hay is H-A-I-G-H versus Brook, B-R-O-O-K. It is a case of 1839. The courts of law hold in this case that if parties agree on any consideration, then the courts of law will not interfere with the parties. If we sit down and we agree that I'm going to sell you this car at this amount, even if the car costs 100 million shillings, but I've given you 100,000 shillings, the court will not interfere, as so long as there is any consideration. And that is the case in Thomas versus Thomas. It is a case of 1842. So the principle in Hay versus Brooks was also considered in the case of Thomas versus Thomas. Actually, the judges were very interesting. They went on to say that even if I give you £1 for a car, even if I give you £1 like this for a car, that is sufficient, because it doesn't need to be adequate. So if you executed a contract and you probably at a certain period of time you were saying that this money was little, please don't go to courts of law. Why? Because it doesn't need to be adequate. It just needs to be sufficient. So, in consideration, how do we measure it? When is it sufficient? Any amount, as long as we've agreed. Why this principle? Because in contract, there is free will. We call it free will. You are free to contract as long as it is legal, as long as it is not unlawful. So you are free to choose any consideration. I can sell a house of 1 billion at 1 million. Why? Because I have the free will. I have the free will. I can choose to do that. So, consideration, another point, when is it sufficient? Put for me there that consideration need not be adequate, but it needs to be sufficient. So any amount of money you pay is consideration. Hope we are clear on that. That is it on when is it sufficient. Okay, maybe an exception to that rule. There is an exception, like I told you yesterday. Every general rule in law, it has some exceptions. If, for example, let me give still a social example. If someone is saying that ladies are not supposed to put on trousers, maybe they have that ladies are not supposed to put on trousers. There must be an exception. Like, for example, if you are working in Umeme, electricity, you climb those poles. If you are a soldier, if you are a police woman, so there must be exceptions. There must always be exceptions. So the exception to this adequate is in what we call equity. The law of equity, if I explain the law of equity, the law of equity is like we are relaxing the law. You never had any remedy. You never had any... We are not supposed to help you, but we've helped you. For you, people who read the Bible, law of equity is like the grace that was brought by Christ. We are under the law, the bondage of the law, but then Jesus came with the grace that you are not... you are supposed to die. You are supposed to go to hell. You are in sin. You are in bondage. You couldn't manage the law. So I have come up with the grace. So before we had what we call common law, it was very harsh. It was very rigid. So now, law of equity came in. It came in to aid those persons who suffer at the expense of the law. So law of equity, you have exceptions to that general rule that consideration need not be adequate. So the law of equity, the law of grace, if I may take it that way, came in. And if, for example, you've sold your car, but indeed the consideration is not, it is too little. A car of 100 million has been taken away at 100,000. So the law of equity come in. You can go to courts of law and seek remedies. What are remedies? You can seek aid. You can seek help of the court to be aided, to be helped. So there you can go under equity and seek remedies that, look here, this car is kind of expensive. The market value of the car is 100 millions and they gave me 100,000. So I'm seeking remedy. I'm seeking your help. Remedies like hope. I'm seeking your hope. I'm seeking hope of the court to intervene in this situation. So that is the exception to the general rule that consideration need not be adequate, but just need to be sufficient. So I can go under the law of equity. But if you are to go to the law of equity, make sure you are not a volunteer. If you are a volunteer, if you decided to volunteer to help someone, you cannot claim under the law of equity. You cannot claim under the law of equity. Why? Because you were a volunteer. if you apply a certain organization as a volunteer, you cannot go to courts of law to ask for consideration. Okay, hope we are together. And another thing I want to talk about are the types of consideration. We basically have two types of consideration, that is executory and executed. Though some books have went on to put past consideration and future consideration, but I think that is a duplicate. That is kind of duplicating the first two. So the types of consideration are two. One, we have what we call executory consideration. And number two, we have executed consideration. What is executory consideration? Executory consideration, this is a promise versus a promise. What is a promise versus a promise? I promised you to give you money if you wash my car. So, in order for consideration to happen, to occur, to emerge, that means you must have washed my car. So, executory consideration is exchange of promise and then performance. It is an exchange of two promises. Promise, then your action, then I give you the consideration. So, you cannot go to courts of law to claim for the consideration when you've not performed your task. So it is exchange of promises. I promised you to give you 100,000 if you wash my car. If you do not wash my car, then you cannot go to courts of law claiming for the consideration or the money. You cannot. Why? Because it's supposed to be two-way, two-sided. It is a two-sided. So where there is exchange of promise to perform a future act. So consideration becomes executed when you do your task. That is when the consideration is going to be executed. If you don't do your task, if you do not wash my car, then consideration is not going to be executed. And that is executory. And executed consideration is the opposite. I give you a promise, you act. The example I gave yesterday. I have my lost, say, dog or a car. My car got lost. Or a dog. Let me give that example of a dog. My dog got lost. So I say that anybody who finds my dog, I'm going to give them this kind of money. So it is a promise to the other person and act, but you don't need to give me a promise. Ideally, you don't need to give me a promise. So I give you a promise, but you're going to act. But it is not incumbent upon you to give me a promise. You just need to go to look for my dog. If you get it, you give it back to me, you give it to me, and then I give you the consideration. So, executory, promise. Executed, promise, and act. So, yes, my lost dog, you don't need to give me a promise that I'm going to get your dog. No. So, anyone who finds that dog, you are going to bring that dog back to me. So, that is what we call executory and executed. Executory, I give you a promise, you give me a promise. You're going to supply me goods, I'm going to give you money. And here, in executed, my lost dog. If you find my lost dog, I'm going to give you money. So, I've given you a promise, but you ideally not necessarily need to give me the promise. You just need to do the act. But some persons have gone on to add what we call past consideration and future consideration. Let me discuss them probably. Past consideration, I gave you the money in the past. Then I tell you, please do for me this. Do for me this. You remember the money I gave you? Yes, I remember. Do for me this. So that one may not be enforced in courts of law. Or future. It is in the future. The consideration is in the future. I do this, then I'll give you in the future. So some books have listed the two as types of constellation, but we are going to major on two types of constellation. We have executory and we have executed constellation. So we have two types of constellation in contract law. So let me establish this. We can never have contract without constellation. Let me just repeat that. If there is no constellation, then there is no contract. If there is no promise to give you something, then there is no contract. I must have promised you something in monetary value or economic value or something of that kind, but there must be constellation. There must be the loss I'm going to suffer. You must be going to gain something. If you are not going to gain something, then that is not a contract. It is something else. Hope we are at par. And lastly, I'm going to look at the rules of constellation. Like I told you, we cannot avoid what we call rules in law. There are very, very many rules. Each and everything has rules that guide it. So, lastly, I'm going to discuss what we call rules of constellation. And the rule number 1 is constellation must not be past constellation. That is what I've been discussing, but still it has some exceptions. So, constellation must not be past constellation. That is the case of RE. You write RE. RE stands for in the matter of. RE, then you do Mercado. MC, ARDE. It is a case of 1951, volume 1. Yesterday I told you volume, after the year you close the brackets, you put 1, then you put All England Law Reports. We don't write All England Law Reports. You put all, the word all, ALLER. So all stands for All England Law Reports. The All England Law Reports. After that, all ER, you put 905. That is the page. So if you are looking for this case, you look for that volume 1. You look for the year 1951, and then you go to page 905. That is the case on the principle that constellation must not be past. What happened in this case? There was a family, I think it was a family of 4 or 5. That is not very important. So, this lady worked on a bungalow. She decorated and improved the bungalow. This lady, a certain lady, it was a family, but this lady worked on a bungalow. So, thereafter, the children of the home promised this lady that they were going to pay her. So, she first did the act, and then they promised to pay her. But then, they failed to fulfill the promise. So, this lady went to courts of law to enforce. She was promised to be paid $488. By then, that was a lot of money. So, they never fulfilled the promise. So, this lady went to courts of law claiming the $488. So, the holding of the courts of law was that, no, you cannot enforce that. Why? Because it was a past constellation. So, I mean, before these boys or these children never promised her to give anything before the decoration and the improvement of the bungalow. So the courts of law held that was past constellation. You cannot enforce it. The constellation was after the work. So she worked not expecting anything, but they promised to pay thereafter. They promised to pay thereafter, but they failed to pay. So she went to courts of law to enforce that contract. The courts of law held that, or gave a judgment that in favor of these children that no, look here, the constellation was after. I mean, the promise was after the doing of the work, so you cannot enforce it. So rule number 1, constellation must not be past. If you came in my home, you worked for me freely, not expecting any promise, then I'm not supposed to pay you. If I promised you, you cannot go to courts of law to enforce that promise. You cannot enforce it. Why? Because it is a past consideration. You did the work without expecting any pay. But now, so now you cannot enforce it. But as I've said, every general rule has exceptions. And we are going to find the exceptions in the case of Pao versus Lao Yi Long. This is a Chinese case. Pao, P-A-O, versus L-A-U. That is one name. Y-I-U. And then, that is another name. And Long, L-O-N-G. It is a case of 1986. They give 3 principles, an exception to the other general rule. They said that if you had asked me for a service or for goods and I deliver in the future, then I can claim for consideration. That case of Pao, it is a locus classicus on an exception to the general rule. Like, they gave 3 things. 1, you must have, the promisor, you must have requested for the service or for the goods. That is number 1. Number 2, I must have the understanding that you were supposed to pay me. You were supposed to pay me, like, I knew it was supposed to be paid for. Me, the promisor, must be knowing that it was supposed to be paid for. And number 3, that the contract would be enforceable if we had sat before on the table and talked about the consideration. So the exception that consideration must not be in the past has exceptions in the case of Pao. Pao, it is a Chinese case. 1, if you had told me that, Samuel, I want the book for love contract, but we do not talk about the consideration, but I know it, or both actually, we know it, that you are supposed to pay me. And then in the future, I bring that book. In the future, I bring that book. So, that is an exception. You are supposed to pay me. Why? Because it is you who ordered for it. Who ordered, say, for a service or for the goods. So if I deliver, you cannot say that that is a past consideration. Why? Because it is you who sent for them. Hope we are very, very clear on that. That is the exception. So number 2, consideration must move from the promisee. Consideration must move from the promisee. So, if, for example, I ordered for the car, you have not delivered the car, I must have given you the money. So if I have not done my part, if I have not given you the consideration, I cannot claim in courts of law. Yes, at least I must have given you the money. I must have given you the consideration. So if I have not given you the consideration, I cannot go to courts of law claiming. Why? Because the consideration has not moved from me, the promisee. So consideration must have moved to the other person promised something. And that is the case of Price versus Easton. Price versus Easton, as in the case Price, S-T-O-N. Price versus Easton. So the consideration must have moved. Sorry, the consideration must have moved from the promisee. From the promisee. That is the case of Price versus Easton. And another case is Thomas versus Thomas. The courts of law had this holding. It is a celebrated holding of Thomas versus Thomas. It was said that for a promisee to be enforceable, something of value in the eyes of the law must move from the promisee to the promisor. Like that example of a car. I'm the promisor. I have my car. I'm the offerer. I'm offering you my car. So you must have given me money. The consideration, all the money must have moved from the other person I've promised to give the car to me. And I do not do my duty. So the consideration must have moved from the promisee to the promisor. Then you can go to courts of law to claim. I'm sure that is very, very clear. That is what the courts of law were alluding to in the case of Thomas versus Thomas. And number 3 is consideration must be sufficient but need not be adequate. The consideration must be just sufficient but not adequate. Still, that case of Thomas versus Thomas, it is a locus classicis case. It is a very, very celebrated case. They were saying that even if I give you £1 in exchange for the car, as long as you've agreed on that, then that is sufficient. That is sufficient. It is like any consideration can amount, any amount can amount to consideration. You are selling a phone, your probably iPhone, I don't know, 10, I don't know what. So you are selling it, but I've given you 50,000. If we go to courts of law, as long as we agreed that I'm supposed to give you 50,000, then that is sufficient. It doesn't need to be adequate. That is the law of consideration. These things are very practical. They are very interesting. You might sell your phone or buy a phone. You cannot go claim to courts of law that no, this money is not enough. This is iPhone what? No. As long as there is any consideration. But as I've told you, we have an exception. The exception is in equity, the law of equity. I can go to courts of law, courts of equity, and I tell them, please, this is unbecoming. The consideration is too little. So I'm seeking for your redress. I'm seeking for redress. I'm seeking for remedies. I'm seeking for your hope. Maybe they may add me something. But you cannot claim for damages, which is a common law remedy. Damages, I explained damages and all that in my first lectures of Introduction to Law. So the exception to the general rule that consideration need not be adequate but sufficient is that you go to courts of law for equity. But as you are going to courts of law for equity, make sure that you never did the same voluntarily. Another point is consideration, forbearance to sue amounts to consideration. Yes, I've already talked about this. If I forbear you, in the case of bank, that is the case of bank. If I've been patient, you were supposed to deliver a certain thing, but you have not delivered, and I've been patient to you. My patience amounts to consideration. You are supposed to pay a certain amount of money in a certain period of time, but you did not pay that amount of money. So my patience, the continued forbearance, the continued patience amounts to consideration. I've been patient, so it is going to be considered as what? Consideration. And that is the definition in the contracts law. Forbearance is also a rule of consideration. It is consideration itself. If I've been patient to you, you are supposed to pay me in January of 2020. Up to now, you've not paid. You know it very well that you breached the contract somewhere, somehow. You know, it is known to you that you breached the contract. And I chose to forbear, I chose to be patient. That means my patience is going to be calculated in form of consideration. Hope we are very, very clear about that. That is the case of bank I've given you already. So, I want to do the summary of today's lecture, and then we shall call it a day. If you have any question, you may forward it. I've talked about what is consideration, and I've said that consideration is the detriment, is the loss, is the damage suffered by one party and then gain to the other party. So I've suffered, you worked for me and I gave you money. My money, I've suffered some money. I've lost some money, like those things of deposit debit. Deposit debit, you've debited. M10, if you subscribe, M10 will tell you that you've debited. You've debited. You debit them, it is a credit to you. If you deposit out of Airtel money or MTN mobile money, then it is a credit to them. So it is a debit to you, it is a credit to them. So in consideration, I lose something, you gain something. That is what we call consideration. And I gave a social example of dowry. If a certain person is introducing me, then I give in a dowry, that means I've suffered. And then the parents of the lady have gained. That is what we call consideration. Detriment suffered by one party and then gain by the other party. Another thing I have discussed about how do we measure it. How do we measure consideration? And I've said it is measured in terms of monetary value. It is measured in terms of economic value. I've also said forbearance can amount to measure of consideration. And then number 4, I've said that parties can agree on the consideration. So consideration is measured in terms of monetary value. So if it cannot be measured in terms of monetary value, then it is not consideration. And another thing I've mentioned on how do you measure it, that gratuity cannot amount to consideration. If you decided to do for me something out of wish, out of will, freely, then you cannot enforce it in courts of law as consideration. That is, how do you measure it? It is measured in terms of economic value, monetary value, forbearance, and then parties can meet and say that this is the consideration, this is what I want you to give me in exchange for my car. And when is it sufficient? I've discussed another thing. When is consideration said to be sufficient? Courts of law do not mind. So if you sold your car at 100,000, that limousine, the courts of law will say, so be it. So be it. We don't have problem with you. Why? Because you have a free mind. This comes from the notion or from the principle that you are two adult persons, like that was the holding in the case of Hay versus Brooks. I've already given you that case. They say that you are two adult persons. So if you agreed that you want 100,000 in your limousine, so be it. It is not our fault. It is not our case. You agreed. You have a free mind. You are not coerced. There was no undue influence. So be it. They do not want to interfere. They don't want to speculate. So courts of law do not speculate about what is sufficient. It is sufficient according to economic value, as so long as we can have economic value in it. Like in that case of Hay versus Brook. As so long as it has some economic value. So they don't mind. Actually, in that case of Hay versus Brook, they said even chocolate wrappers can amount to consideration. If I give you chocolate wrappers, then it amounts to consideration. So as so long as there is monetary value in that thing, it can amount to consideration. Then I've discussed the types, and I've said there are two types. We have executory, that is promise versus promise, and then we have executed, that is promise versus an action. Promise versus promise, executory, and then executed, promise versus an action. But I've also mentioned the fact that some persons do consider past consideration and future consideration, but in my opinion, I think that is a duplication of executed and executed. Then I've talked about the rules, and they are not exhaustive. I think tomorrow we shall pick up from there exhaustively talk about the rules that govern constellation, and probably we shall look at another principle. We've talked about offer, we've talked about constellation, and tomorrow we shall finish constellation and talk about something else. Thank you for listening to this law series. Have a blessed afternoon. We meet tomorrow. God bless you.